welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet as it relates to crypto. This is a continuation, basically building on the first video that I made. The last one I posted up talking about how to protect yourself against crypto hackers because there's a lot of security related information in this video. But with all that being said, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So what you would use a hot wallet versus a cold wallet, it's going to depend on the situation that you're in. So first I'm going to explain what each of these are, and then I will go into the specific details of where you would kind of want to look at using each one. So with a hot wallet, the way you could look at it is that it's basically a credit card. So we'll go through that here. Now, the thing with a hot wallet, this isn't really a pro or a con, this is just a feature of it, is that it always has access to the internet. So in the last video, I was talking about crypto exchanges, so things like Coinbase or Binance. And then there's also apps that you can get like Exodus that work on desktop and mobile. Those are all examples of hot wallets because they have access to the internet. The other thing, now this is considered basically like a pro of it. You know, if you wanted to basically use crypto every day, if you wanted to do something like day trading or transactions in crypto frequently, that kind of stuff, that is where a hot wallet would come in a lot more, would be a lot more useful than just relying on a cold wallet. The other thing is you also get a huge range of currencies. So especially on things like Binance or Coinbase or whatever platform, is you have things like Cardano, XRP, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, so on and so forth. And so you have a huge range of currencies, whereas with cold wallets, sometimes you don't get as much of a selection. Now, the one thing, and this is considered a huge issue with hot wallets, is the risk of being hacked. Now, you could go back and take a look at news articles from previous years covering things like how crypto exchanges have been hacked, people would lose a bunch of money. Sometimes the exchanges would cover that, sometimes they wouldn't. It kind of depends on it. Now, here in the US, especially with things like Coinbase or Binance US, because now there's starting to become a lot of regulations around it, you could probably say that it's not quite as risky, but it still is pretty risky. And my videos, by the way, they're not financial advice. I'm not going to give you advice on how to invest. I'm just giving you some basic things that you need to keep a lookout for. Now let's cover cold wallets, and then we'll go over cases where you would want to look at, depending on the situation that you're in, where you'd want to look at using each one. Cold wallet, you can think of this as basically like a bank vault. You're storing a large sum of currency somewhere, and the intention is that you would keep it there for quite a while. So the thing with cold wallets, they are the opposite of hot wallets because it is offline. The other thing is with cold wallets. Now, you've probably heard me mention this in the last video, and if you've been around the crypto space for a while, I'm sure you've probably heard the expression, not your keys, not your crypto. That's really true when it applies to using a hot wallet because it's not your keys, not your crypto. At any time, let's say you have $300,000 locked up on or stored on somewhere like Coinbase. If they ever decide to restrict trading, or for some reason they decide you can't pull your money out, or whatever is going on, whatever issue could come up, is you don't have access to your money. That's a huge risk that you take when you jump into playing with crypto. And it's the same thing with the stock market. There were times that I tried trading on the stock market and things would get restricted, and well, sometimes that's just how the game goes. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue on here so we can get into the use cases. Now, the thing with a cold wallet is, because it's offline, and the way that all this works is it is a pain in the ass if you try to use this every day. And this is considered one of the cons with a cold wallet, is you do have, if you don't secure your stuff right, there is a huge potential for loss. So what you want to do with a cold wallet, like let's say you have something like a Ledger Nano, the device could get damaged. Now, as long as you have your seed phrase, you should be good. But the thing with this is, if you're going to go for a cold wallet, ideally what you want to have is multiple safe locations where you can access your seed phrase. So that could be things like you have maybe a couple of safety deposit boxes at a couple different trustworthy banks where if you for some reason forget it, or you have it written on a piece of paper or something and you have it stored in your home or some other location, you lose it. That way you don't lose your crypto, because the thing is with a seed phrase, by the way, those who aren't familiar with seed phrase, basically it's your private key. It's basically like a password to be able to access your crypto. If that ever gets lost, or if someone were to ever get their hands on it, they could transfer all that money out of your account. There's no recourse that you'd have. All of your money is going to be gone. If you lose it, you can never get your crypto back. And so it's super important that if you go for a cold wallet, that you come up with some sort of a method that you have multiple reliable backups that you can access if you need to. And so I just talked about the seed phrase. This could be like 12 words, 18 words, 24 words, whatever. Basically, like I said, it's your password to be able to access your crypto. Now, the other thing is if you're going to do a cold wallet, now this is really important. So let's say you end up buying a Ledger Nano. This is a device that you can use for cold wallets. Make sure you buy from reputable sellers. So the thing is when you want to buy one of these devices, ideally you would want to buy straight from the manufacturer themselves instead of going through a third party, maybe a place like eBay. I don't know why anyone would want to buy a device like this off of eBay or anything like that, but you would always want to buy it directly from the manufacturer if possible, or from some other trusted, reputable seller, because if you end up buying a counterfeit, you will end up losing all of your money because there will be some sort of malware on there, and they'll have a crypto jacker on there. So let's talk about where you would end up using each one of these wallets. Now, the first thing that I'm going to talk about, if I can figure out what the hell's wrong with my pen here, is first you would want to look at, are you looking at trying to do long-term investment, or are you trying to look at doing day trading? Now, again, that my video is not investment advice. I'm just giving you kind of an overview of things, but something that I think would be important to consider. This is something I've heard Richard Hart say a lot, is day trading crypto is like picking up pennies in front of freight trains. And I would have to agree with him because I've tried the day trading side of things, and believe me, you can lose a lot of money because you're basically gambling. And maybe long-term investment, a lot of people might look at that kind of the same way. I have a different outlook on it because you can make more educated guesses about where things are going. Ideally, what you'd want to do is take a look at the project, see how the project is going, make sure it's not a rug pull, pump and dump, or some other sort of scam. But there's just a lot of risk with doing day trading. And I know there's a lot of people that make money with day trading, but the thing is there's a lot more people that lose a lot of money with day trading. So when you're taking a look at this, let's say, so day trading, this is an example of where you would end up wanting to use a hot wallet. So, something like Binance or Coinbase or Exodus, whatever it may be. Now, a long-term investment, this is typically where you would want to end up looking at using a cold wallet. Now, you could use a hot wallet to do long-term investment. It depends on how much risk tolerance you have for it. And if you're going to store that crypto for a long period of time anyway, let's say the next 2 to 3 years. So we're in a pretty bad crypto slump right now. And I think things are going to get worse before they get better. That's just my opinion. Again, I'm not giving you investing advice, but let's say you have $200,000 worth of crypto. I'd say that's fairly reasonable for a lot of people that do long-term investments in crypto, is something in the 5 to 6 figure range. Depends on your risk tolerance. Do you want to risk having that stored on an exchange where a hack could happen and you could lose all your money? Or would you prefer to use a cold wallet? Like I said, put a couple of seed phrase backups in a couple of different reliable banks and some safety deposit boxes. So that way, you know that you can get to it whenever you need to. Let's say there's some big bull run and you want to sell it and make a bunch of money. But the thing is this comes down to long-term investment. Cold wallet is probably going to be the better option here. Personally, it's what I would use, especially for large sums of money. Now, the next thing, let's say you end up, now I put small purchases here. You can put purchases of any amount. because if you're going to be frequently using crypto, then basically you'd really want to have a hot wallet. That way it's a lot easier to do transactions. Now you can use something like a Trezor or a Ledger and make purchases with it. It's just going to take more patience to be able to do. It's going to take more time and effort to be able to do it. And so, like I've talked about before, the cold wallet is basically a bank vault. If you're going to have a large sum of investments, you're going to hold it for long term, like a long term strategy, say 2 to 3 years while you're waiting for another bull run. Cold wallets are probably going to be the way that you want to go. Now, as far as so I've talked about hot and cold wallets. Now, for example, Exodus is an example of a hot wallet. It's the app that works on desktop and mobile, but it does interface with Trezor, which is a cold wallet. It's a device that you plug into your computer. It's one option that you could look at doing. And also, if you're going to be, let's say that you want to do day trading or kind of mess around with day trading, or you do a lot of purchases, but you also want to do long-term investments, I would say it's perfectly feasible to go ahead and have both. So you could have a cold wallet where, let's say you have 50K worth of different crypto coins stored, and then over in your hot wallet you have just like, let's say, a few $100 that you play around with and you move money around, or let's say you're dabbling with doing some day trading and whatnot. It's a pretty good high level overview of the difference between hot wallets and cold wallets. Ultimately, what you're going to end up wanting to use is going to depend on your use case. And like I said, if you're going to do investing and day trading or frequent purchases, I would say take a look at getting both of them, or you could just go with something like Trezor. Or if you have risk tolerance, then you could just look at staying on something like Binance, or just using something like Exodus. Anyway, that's going to wrap the video up. I'm going to be coming back and doing more videos on crypto in the future. I've got kind of a long-term strategy that I have going with these videos. So one of the next ones that you'll see probably over the coming next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a deep dive into DeFi versus traditional banking. So I'm going to cover that one pretty well, and I'm going to be covering more crypto stuff as well. I'm going to talk about how you can take a look at the projects. So for example, if you were to take a look at Ethereum, take a look at the projects that it's behind. That way you can get a better idea of what to look for when you're trying to get into crypto. And it kind of also helps people because when you're taking a look at stuff to invest in, you want to take a look, you want to make sure it's a solid project backed by people that are trustworthy, or, things where they have their face and name out in the open, and it's where you can verify it's not some pump and dump scam that's being peddled by a bunch of influencers who have no idea what the hell crypto is, and yet they get paid tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to go out and scam their audience and push it on other people. So I'm going to cover a lot of videos like that in the future. I'm also going to keep doing cybersecurity stuff and other tech videos. So we're just building on stuff. So you'll see more crypto videos coming out over the coming months. Anyway, thank you for the support as always. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, make sure you go ahead and drop a comment and let me know. With all that being said, I will see you on Friday.